What screams I live on dad's money? The foreign students who go to school in the expensive metropolitan city, pay international fees, don't attend classes regularly, and only wear designer brands. Obviously this is not reflective of all foreign students. Had an employee once who was fresh out of grad school, paid him 60k. He drove a brand new 120k Mercedes, lived in a 4k/month penthouse, wore all bespoke clothing, etc etc. His salary was definitely a blip on his financial radar. It was wild. I cannot go out tomorrow. I have to work. Just tell your boss that you want to do it. Don't be afraid of him. Who does he think he is? It happened to me. He works in his father's company. People who claim to be financially independent, but have never had a job. When they don't understand financial restrictions. There have been a few people I've met who never really thought about not having enough money to do something. Anything from fixing a car to going out to eat. If you say you can't do something because you're broke, and they respond with, just put it on your credit card, they are likely a candidate. I used to work with a guy years ago. We were both in our mid-20s, and both working in junior white-collar jobs, making around the same pay. So while it was okay money, it wasn't amazing. This guy was buying his third home in as many years. Like, he already owned 2, lived in one, rented out the other nice houses, and was buying a third, and keeping the other 2 to build a mini property portfolio. When I told him that my wife who also worked a white collar job and I couldn't afford a down payment, he responded, just ask your family for the money. That's what I do. When I responded that A, they didn't have the kind of money, and B, even if they did we weren't comfortable doing that, he just couldn't understand it. He was visibly confused because it was outside his little bubble. I had a school friend who got enough for a deposit on a house when he was 15, around £20,000 from a dead relative. He got one and rented it out. The rent covered the mortgage and a bit extra, and stayed living with his parents. When he was 19 he had enough for a second house to rent out, and when he was 23 a third, and so on. Now he owns his own home outright and does not really need to work at 30ish. Was good for him to get that money so young, and I would be lying if I said I was not jealous. But he invested it damn well. Edit. Yes, his parents helped him with the logistics and acted as guarantors. I don't know the details of who did what or how. I know they got rundown property and did them up. Most weekends he was renovating something or other. An old co-worker of mine, who was a super nice guy, never made any higher than $40k. He was able to buy a house while his wife stayed home with his son, got a brand new Lexus every 2 years or so, posts pictures of him on traveling on planes all the time in first class and or a private jet. His first year at work had talked to us like all of this common, but I think he learned pretty quickly to keep quiet about his privileged life. I have a friend who told me he has distant cousins who live off a trust fund that pays them 10 grand a month each and they're having trouble getting by. Having names like Jane, Ralphia or Mona Lisa.
N.
I used to know a girl who always complained about handouts and lazy poor people and pointless charities. I found out the Mustang she drove was a gift from her father. Her parents paid her rent, and her high-paying job was at her mom's company. She honestly didn't see any of that as charity. She got the car, job, and apartment because she's so amazing and deserves it, obviously. For a period of time in the early 2000s I lived in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Rents in some parts of Williamsburg were, and still are, ridiculously expensive. I couldn't afford to live in the vicinity of the cool area, otherwise known as Bedford Avenue. Instead I roomed with 5 other people in an converted 3-bedroom apartment about a 15 to 20 minute walk away from Bedford. Every so often I'd find myself at a cafe on Bedford Avenue and see all the folk starving artists sitting there looking like they'd just rolled out of bed for hours on end. It was clear they didn't have anywhere they needed to be. Rents for a 1 British rail on / near Bedford were often north of $2,000 a month, and that was in 2001/2002. No way in hell you're 18 to 22 years old and paying your own bills working part-time if you live there. I 30F just started to date a guy not too long after I lost a job. I took a room at in to help me pay the rent, and he got mad. Said that he will be less comfortable because of the privacy and couldn't understand that I put money before the relationship. I said that I will not spend on $500 a month and that I won't be able to pay. His solution: ask money from my parents and wait a couple of months till he moves in and saves me. After a fight, I mostly discover that he still lived in his parents' home at 30. His whole shtick about travel is my philosophy suddenly seemed less cool. I broke up that week. Not understanding the schedule restrictions due to having a part-time job, or not being able to understand why you can't stay out late because you have to get up for work at 5 AM for a job that doesn't pay enough to count for the gas it would take to drive all over town all night. Next on House Hunters, I'm a freelance basket weaver. My wife is a kindergarten teacher. We're looking for a rustic house outside of Austin on a $5 million budget. Your first car at 16 is a Mercedes or any luxury cars. You are 27, jobless / still live at your parents, and show off your expensive purses / shoes / clothes and lifestyle on Instagram. You know those YouTubers who casually drive supercars around to review them, and really it's like a homebrew reality show. Yeah, them. Income disparity really beach smacked me when I got out of school. When all of my friends graduated and moved on, most of us hung around the city we went to school near. I had an engineering degree and was making more than most of my friends, but still living in a major US city on an entry-level salary. Times were lean, but whatever. Each weekend though, I was somehow the only person who could barely afford gas or had to stay in because I didn't have bar money. I'd get little nuggets of wisdom from my friends sometimes that I needed to be smarter with my money, but these guys were living in the same shitty apartments as me, going to the same bars whilst somehow making less. It confused the duck out of me. They got vacations, nice dinners in town, and bought new cars. Meanwhile I was out earning them by like $10,000 per year and eating ducking Hot Pockets for dinner 5 nights a week and driving a beat up old Hyundai with a savings account balance of 0. A few years later I was talking to someone in that group and he said something to the effect of, yeah, everyone's parents take care of them after they get out of school. It's what they're supposed to do. Then it clicked. I'm 35 now, and it's so painfully obvious when I see the same brand of 22-year-old kids around town ordering the most expensive thing on the menu that cheats daddy money, and he's acting like he earned it. I live in a relatively high-income community, and I'll see teenagers with Rolexes and all-us Jeeps joyriding on the main road. It's no fun to be near them. My roommates are like this. I'm struggling working 40+ hours trying to make rent and have food, but all they do is sit at home and dick around all day. I wish I could tell you what they do, and for whatever reason they won't go get their own food ever, so I have to bring shit home for them, otherwise they complain. They never clean up after themselves and leave their shit everywhere, which makes me think their mom must have done that kind of thing for them. And if I'm gone for even one night they freak out and start meowing when I get home. Don't even get me started on the litter boxes. Not understanding the value of the dollar. Example, when my best friend and I were World of Warcraft addicts in middle school through college, there would be times where I would run out of money for my sub. It was damn expensive for a kid like myself buying my own way using prepaid time cards. My best friend would say, oh, just do what I do and charge it to your dad's credit card. That way you can just pay by year and not worry about it. He wasn't being a prick. That's just the only way he knew. He had no idea what it was like to have to work hard for something so simple. Whoa, W wasn't cheap, man. $15 a month. Being in college without a job, while also getting the latest iPhone every year, and never even thinking about scholarships or student loans. Being a Chinese national, and going to a UK university. I mean, not all of them, but like most. The cars, the clothes. These kids are ducking kept. I dated a girl who would get angry with me if I didn't spend enough time with her during the week because of my regular 40-hour work week. She lives in her grandparents' house with half of the rest of her family and hasn't had a job since about 2013. Couldn't fathom why I put my responsibilities and bills before the relationship. I still can't, not even 5 years later, wrap my head around that reasoning. Where I live, I don't see a lot of people that are outright supported by their parents. I see more people whose finances are obviously supplemented by their parents. On the surface they appear to live normal, financially aware lives until something unexpected comes up. They wreck their car and it gets fixed immediately. They have a free weekend, so naturally they book a last minute flight home to visit family. Smashed phone. No problem, just go replace it with the latest model. They frequently go on exotic vacations, despite still being in school or having just entered the workforce. They go to work or school, drive normal cars, and live in normal apartments, but they do everything they want to do and never experience any kind of financial hardship because they have their parents' funds as a reserve. //edit. I might not have been specific enough in my comments. I'm not talking about just providing a safety net in case of emergencies. I'm talking about enabling irresponsible behavior by artificially inflating an adult child's standard of living and removing any responsibility they might face from reckless behavior and spending. The child doesn't straight up have everything given to them on a silver plate, but they definitely have mom and dad's credit card in their wallet. Early 20s masseurs living in a 300k, 900 square foot flat downtown. Always has the latest clothes, drives a Beamer, has been a masseuse for all of 3 years, never went to college. I knew a girl who once asked me, "You work all the time, how can you not afford to go out?" Had to explain what I pay for rent, food, and bills on top of uni fees and assignment fees. She couldn't compute. Had a professional career mentor at my college for alumni. Made a meeting with the guy to ask about starting a business as an artisan, how to get studio space, and pay for everything. Being an entrepreneur is not something taught at art school, but it's expected that you become one and know how to do it. I have no business savvy. I didn't know where to start. The man looked at me 10 minutes in and said, you could just ask your parents to loan you 10 grand. I was at a complete loss for words. Number 1. Thanks tips. If that was an option, do you think I would be here with you? Number 2. Not everyone has a spare few tens of thousands hanging around for just funsters. Goodness. What planet are you even from? This man was in his 60s and completely clueless that asking for such a sum wasn't possible for some people. Also, adults not knowing how student loans work. I had an ex-boyfriend try to get me pregnant, found out he was messing with my birth control. We were both in undergrad. He already had 1 kid. I wanted and still want none of my own. When I called him out, I told him that even if I went through with a potential accidental pregnancy had I not found out about the BC sabotage, we weren't in a place to afford a baby. It'll be fine. Your parents will pay for everything. And of course he believed that, because his parents paid for all his expenses, including his child support, so he could buy toys. People who have no financial knowledge at all, especially the ones, when they get money they spend it on non-important wants such as expensive clothing/items. Just basically someone who's very irresponsible when it comes to money. My friend wasn't extremely wealthy, but it's clear that his family was well off when he was in high school. We were talking about high school a few years ago. He asks me, "Remember those times when you and your friends would go to school early so you can park your cars next to each other?" I replied back, "Bro, my friends and I were poor. Our asses walked every day hoping we didn't get jumped by gang members on our way home." I think he thought I was joking, but I was dead serious. I have a few friends who have crummy jobs, and they have a room or 2 to afford rent. Yet somehow they go on trips to Europe and Spain and Hawaii and stuff every few months. The only way I can figure they're doing this is daddy is sending them money for the trips, or is paying their normal bills, so their work money goes toward fun.